Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Fran Lewis. This is MJ Network on Restream in memory of my sister, Marcia Joyce, who started me off on this road. And we have New York Times author John Gilstrap here with one of my favorite novels, and I'm going to put on the glasses so I can see it. This is like, yeah, I have the book in front of me, and I love this character. It says live on YouTube. They just sent me an email. Former FBI Director Irene Rivers, you're going to love her, thought her family would be safe on their charming farm nestled in the heart of West Virginia's eastern panhandle, far away from the backstabbing maelstrom of D.C. politics. However, her nephew stumbles on a body deep in the wilderness. She soon realizes that her seemingly peaceful home is caught up in a deadly web of secrets. And I'm not going to say any more. All I could tell you is that I love this character. The fact that she's not a young person makes me feel so much better. No, you know what it is? I don't tell anybody my date of birth because I really don't know what it is. My mother made it up. And unfortunately, they tell them again, oh, can you understand what I'm saying? Oh, of course not. So, how
Isn't
did you
that, isn't that
create?
hard, isn't that hard to get a passport if you don't have a date of birth?
I don't have to go anywhere. You know what? I can't feel the left side of my face. I had surgery, failed to diagnose, so doesn't matter.
Okay.
But I have a driver's license, and they're lucky that I stay off the roads.
All right.
Yes, what can I say? How did you create the scene 35 years ago, and how does it connect to the present? That's so interesting.
Well, Irene was originally an FBI agent in my second
Yeah.
novel, At All Costs, which actually you can see right over my shoulder here. That one came out in 1998. And she was kind of a throwaway character. And then as that story grew, she became more and more important as the FBI agent who let the guy at the head, the family, actually, the couple at the head of the FBI's most wanted list get away. And so that story is about them figuring out that that's a big environmental crime that happened in that. So fast forward about 10 years when I was doing the first of the Grave books, I needed an
Yeah.
FBI director. And so kind of, thinking of a name, and I realized, well, I already have an FBI person. And Irene Rivers is actually named after my wife's mother, whom I never met. She died just a couple of weeks actually before I met my wife. So I thought, okay, let's give her another honor, and I made Irene Rivers the director of the FBI, again for kind of a throwaway sequence that just kind of propelled the plot. And then she ended up with new things to do in every one of the Grave books, and I realized I had something, and that she deserved her own series, and that's where Burn Bridges is the first of the new Irene Rivers thriller series. She's no longer the head of the FBI. And yeah, she's trying to escape and become anonymous in the hills of West Virginia, and it doesn't work well for her.
Doesn't work out for anybody when you want to be anonymous. Sometimes you just don't want to be seen, period. I know, that's really great. Now, this is interesting because I've heard it happen to other people before. Could you imagine a young boy is bike riding and he's riding as fast, but he sees a dead body? Now that would shock anybody. And yet he was reporting something, so he got in trouble. And I wanted to smack the police officer for yelling at him because he did the right thing.
Well, he did the right thing in the wrong way. I mean, he was
Yeah,
with the way this plays out. And again, it kind of plays to,
yeah.
I live in West Virginia. I live in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, where we have a lot of these limestone outcroppings and caves, what we call them.
Ooh,
And I would never. That's not. I don't do caves. But I was walking my little protector, Kimber, the dog. She's all of 22 pounds. I just woke her up by saying her name. Um, she was trying to get into one of these things, and I said, "You don't want to go in there. There's nothing that lives in that cave that you want to meet." And and that was kind of the trigger for this story of, well, yeah, suppose a dog does go into one of these caves and find something. In this case, it was a body, and Wyatt is Irene's nephew. She's the custodial guardian of him. He's Irene's sister's boy, his sister passed away, and he gets caught. They own a lot of land, about 170 acres in West Virginia, and there's a public road that crosses through, and he's got his ATV, his four-wheeler, and he
Mm,
gets caught crossing the road by a cop, and you can't be 12 years old and driving across the road. So that's how the police become involved in all of this. And then when Wyatt finally shares that what his secret is, why he was coming down the road,
yeah.
things progress from there.
All I can tell you is I went on a tour and I wound up in a cave with a whole bunch of people from a college class I was taking in earth science. That was so cool.
It's just one of those commercial ones.
I don't even know where it was. I'm trying to remember. I know it was someplace upstate that they had to take us all there. And the earth science professor thought this was cool, and we all thought, you got to be kidding. Then when we came back, it was all about rocks and stuff, and we had to actually go find them from the ground.
Well,
It
I
was,
don't,
it's really,
caves locally.
yeah,
There are a number of caves.
yeah,
Luray Caverns comes to mind here around in Virginia, but those are commercial and those are big. They're like
yeah.
cavernous interiors. That's not
Not the
that's
real
not what.
caves, yeah.
No. The real people who go spelunking go in these places where their shoulders barely fit, and I can't imagine doing that.
Not me either. So she calls the police, and Monroe, who I don't like, questioned Wyatt. So Wyatt, he did that because he was going the wrong way. But how did he deal with him? And poor Wyatt, I would have told him more probably.
Well, Sheriff Monroe, he's young and he's ambitious,
Yeah.
and Irene Rivers is new in town, and she's also famous. I mean, she's a former FBI director who, in
Mhm.
her last engagement in the Graves series, brought down the presidential administration, President Darman's administration. So she's vilified, and she's half hero, half villain, depending on who you talk to. So Sheriff Monroe was, I think, using this as an opportunity to kind of get to meet Irene and to show her who's sheriff in town, And he did not know when he first brought Wyatt up, he didn't know about the body.
Mhm.
It's about an hour later when she calls to report the body that he's really pissed because he knows that Wyatt knew
Mhm.
about the body at the time and didn't tell anything. So here you have the former director of the FBI who knows her way around law enforcement dealing with a puffed up local sheriff who's just
Yeah.
angry. And it sets kind of an interesting scene. It's not so much do you know who I am, but you're not going to mess with me. I know my way around here. Get off my land. I'm doing the right thing.
That is so cool. I know, and it's scary. My aunt's unveiling somebody tried to steal the grave and the coffin. It was open. When my cousin came, he called me, said the coffin's open. I could see my mother. I go, well, did she say hello? Somebody
When did this
actually,
happen?
it happened last year when my aunt died out of nowhere, and the cemetery I work with is horrible. And I called the lady and I said, Miss Glamis, I don't know how to tell you, but my aunt's grave is open, and she's saying hi to everybody. And they didn't bury the stone; they moved the stone and everything. Well, this happens. I said, no, only at Beth Abraham it's going to happen, and I took care of it. They didn't like how I reported it to the cemetery board. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. And my cousin took a picture. I said,
This was
tell everybody.
they dug up a 6 foot deep grave.
Uh-huh. Then not only did they dig it up, but the stone was off. So they opened up the coffin to make sure she was in there.
Oh my God. I didn't know
And
grave robbery happened anymore.
I they're horrible. I said, Alan, tell my aunt I'm sorry. I meant to do a better job. They were hysterical, left. They didn't want to kill me. So Irene helps, but my favorite character is Aunt Rennie. Everybody needs an Aunt Rennie.
Well, Aunt Renee is Irene.
Yeah, I love
She's
her.
a lot of names to her daughter.
Yeah, I
Not all
like
of them
that.
complimentary, but she's Aunt Renee to Wyatt, and it's kind of a new. It's a role that she's not entirely familiar with because she's
Well,
been, she she's been the director of the freaking FBI, right?
Yeah.
So she's always working, and her kids were kind of, they weren't exactly free range, but she wasn't a doting mother either. So here she's moved them out into the country and stripped them away from the Northern Virginia area, the Washington, D.C. area, which is where they grew up, out to escape. They're escaping the media. They're escaping just the pressures of Washington. But from the kids' point of view, they're in the middle of freaking nowhere and don't know what to do.
God.
So Wyatt is kind of the one who understands that he kind of likes it. You know, he gets to carry a pistol around on the property because they got coyotes and snakes and stuff that he can shoot, and he's very good with a pistol, as it turns out. So Wyatt likes being there, and their daughter Kelly really does not like being there. So you got that family strife that's going on too.
I love this kid. You got to bring him back. He's my favorite. Sorry. Now, this is a true problem. After teaching for 1,000 years, we won't say how many, school bullies are very real. And they do happen. And as the dean and other things, I always got stuck dealing with everybody else's problems in school bullies because nobody in the school knew how to deal with them until I created a mediation group. So how does he deal with school bullies, and how does it come to be what he wants to ride his bike? He wants to just ride it, nobody following him, which is not always a good idea.
Wyatt has a history during the bad times that happened before
Yeah.
this book happens.
Uh-huh.
Uh, he was a hothead. He got in a lot of fights, and he got suspended a number of times. And um, now that he's in a new place, his strategy is to try to be as invisible as he
Yeah.
possibly can. And because his last name is different than Rivers, because he's the nephew, a lot of people haven't made the connection that he is, Irene Rivers's nephew. As opposed to Kelly, who's older and in a different school. She's in high school. He's in
I
middle school.
like her too.
And so she takes a lot of the heat for being a Rivers that he doesn't have to take. So Wyatt's strategy is just to be as quiet as possible. And he ends up overhearing things about his family that he has some difficulties dealing with. He kind of vibrates with anger, but tries his best not to act on it.
He's a cool kid. I like this kid.
Thank you.
Yeah. More kids like him. Reminds me of some of my nephews. So, how does Irene decide to lead the investigation? And how does dear Monroe feel about that? I'm sure he's just thrilled because actually she's better at it.
Well, Irene gets wrapped into a case that involves a young man named Colin Frank, who has been accused of the murder of a teenager, a high schooler. He's also a high schooler, named Abigail Graham. And the evidence against Colin is overwhelming.
Yeah.
So in her retirement, she decides she's hung out her private investigator shingle, and the family of Colin Frank has hired her to help him to beat the charges. And she actually goes to the family with the intent of telling them, sometimes good kids do bad things. Your kid's screwed here. He just clearly did this murder. And then because of the Hannah Frank, his mom is very convincing. So Irene decides, fine, I'll give the evidence another look. And as she gives the evidence another look, she realizes that there's something wrong with this case. She can't put her hand on it, but there's something wrong. And so that puts the relationship between herself and the sheriff in kind of an odd spot, because he's the one that's leading the investigation. Is he trying to hide things, or is he just not looking things the right way? Certainly he is not interested in having this former FBI director walking into his territory and telling him what to do with his investigation.
You begin to wonder. I've read so many books like this where the cop gets really upset. And I won't say any more about that because sometimes That's what happens.
Well, you think about it, it's true. In
Yeah, a lot
I
of
don't know what
them.
it's like in New York where you're from, but in West
Oh,
Virginia,
please, it's horrible here.
well, the sheriff is one
Yeah,
of the most powerful people in the state. I mean, he's elected first of all, and he can
yeah,
do a lot of things. And in this case, Sheriff Monroe, as an elected official, whether in a corrupt place or not, we learned that over time within in the book. He's got um, he's got concerns that that he has to protect in just in his career and frankly for his own personal safety.
well, we're going to worry about who's going to become mayor of the Bronx, but not me. I mean, mayor of New York City, and the one that's there now has been brought up on enough charges to choke a horse. So I don't know. And Cuomo's running for it. It should be interesting.
Those of us who sit in my part of the country watch this and
Yeah,
wonder what the hell is going on up there, but it doesn't really affect me. So
yeah, you should see. It's horrible. Now this is the hard part. He gets to ride his bike, and then he has a conversation with the principal. Oh, that's always fun.
well, the principal pulls him aside. Uh,
Yeah,
he gets in a conflict in the cafeteria, and um, the principal pulls him aside essentially to fire a warning shot over his bow. I mean, here you got an adult that's bullying a child. Bullying is kind of a theme throughout this, quite honestly.
yeah,
You have a school administrator essentially threatening a young boy that you haven't done anything bad yet, but we know you did bad things in the past. So don't even
yeah.
think about doing bad things here because we know you have a bad aunt, and your bad aunt did bad things. And so Wyatt Wyatt's just kind of an old soul. He's been beaten up by these things all the time, and so yeah, I mean he takes it and he understands it for what it is, and he doubles down on the fact that he needs to just stay invisible and let adults be stupid.
I agree with him. It's as invisible as possible. You can. When you're the dean and the principal doesn't want to deal with anything like me, I had to deal with the police and everything because she wanted to be bothered. That's probably why, thank God, she's not there anymore.
Well, we had a case actually,
Yeah,
and
and it's the true cases. Yeah,
my my son will probably kill me for this, although it happened 35 years ago. He had an assistant principal when he was in fourth grade who Chris took Dramamine on a field trip. It was a 4-hour field trip, and he had a real car sickness issue. So he took Dramamine that we had given him, and this is a long time ago. It was in the early '90s, and it never occurred to me that he had to give the Dramamine to a teacher before he took it. Right. So although he told us that's what he had to do, and I said, no, you don't. So he was caught in the process of taking a Dramamine, and they were going to expel him and bring him up on drug charges within the Prince William County school system in Virginia. I was appalled, but it's kind of what this is based on, to be honest with you. Here
wow.
you have this adult who's looming over this. I don't know, how old are you in fourth grade? 8, 9, and terrifying him, and I don't know, just sort of getting pleasure out of this, and um, it ended up in our favor. It turned out that I was I was a novelist. I don't have a lot to do with my spare time, so um, I, she did not prevail in all of this. But I was appalled by that. There's a certain degree of villainy that comes from uh, school administrators who hide behind the zero tolerance just to
Yeah,
do just to do cruel things to kids, and they don't belong in the system. But I digress.
yeah. Well, that's okay because principal in my school, there was a problem in the supermarket over the weekend with the police, with two kids getting in trouble. And I said, that's not my problem. That's the problem for the police to deal with. She called the precinct near my school and told them to come and question me with the kids about this. I said, I can't do that without the parents. Wasn't going to do that. One was a really good kid, one was really dangerous. And at the end result was I said to the police officer, "This is your problem, not mine." And I wound up, they told me I had to suspend both of them. I said, "I'm not going to do anything. That's the principal's job." I just looked at her. I had no problem talking to the police, but I mean, I'm not going to suspend somebody for a supermarket that I wasn't at.
Right.
This is how she dealt with everything. What can I say? Now, here's my other favorite character, Crash. We don't want to say too much about him, but he was part of a very powerful family. How did you include that?
Well, the Rutledge family.
Yeah, the
Um,
Rutledge family, they're really cool.
well, it depends on your point of view. I think
Yeah.
um, they, they're sort of the Jenkins County crime family. They've been around forever. They own everything. Half the people in town are either named Rutledge or have in-laws who are Rutledges. So uh, they are uh, they are deeply involved in pretty much everything that goes on. Some of it philanthropic. They're not all bad. Uh, but the good stuff is often covering bad stuff. And this brings us back to the body that was found
Yeah.
in the first chapter, where um, Crash Rutledge is the son of Rutledge, who's doing his
Uh-huh.
time in jail. He's got several kids, and Crash was the one who was supposed to kind of run the legitimate side of the business. He was sort of the Michael Corleone of this crime family, and and he was involved with some things that may or may not have involved that body that was found. So the finding the body on Irene's property, and that body had been there for decades. I mean, this goes back generations that this thing was buried, and it's a secret that has been hidden for a long time. But if exposed, it's going to cause a lot of things to unravel. So Crash's position, and Crash is his football name. His real name is Aloysius, and and he's a big guy. So if you call him Aloysius, you get punched.
Hmm.
So that was when he was in high school football. That Crash was his name, and that's what he likes to go by now. And so Crash doesn't want any of this to have happened, and I think it's kind of the secret. He wanted to pretend that he didn't know, but now as things are coming out, he has family to defend, and he's got things he has to do.
There's a case on the news just like that. A couple of them. Exactly like that. It's scary. And there was a girl that's been missing for 25 years. They just found her body. It's
Well,
so
you hear
sad.
these cases of
And you wonder,
yes, you wonder, and you wonder what. I like to ask these questions in the books I write. Actually, I like even the bad guys think they're good guys. Um, what length would somebody go if there were a deep secret, and small towns are different than big
yeah,
cities, but if the secret would unravel everything that you have and that you've earned, that you become, how far would you go to protect that? And
probably a lot.
yeah, I think so. How far do you
Oh,
go to
yeah.
protect family, which becomes an issue for Irene's family when people come to attack them? What is the appropriate application of force when your family is under attack? I tell you, in West Virginia, what's legal is entirely different than what's legal in New York, where you are.
That's scary. That's scary. My family lives in West Virginia.
Oh, cool. They're
My
good people.
cousins, my cousins do. She was a court reporter, and now she's a grandma taking care of her kids.
Whereabouts?
McLean, one. She's in McLean, Virginia,
Oh,
and my
McLean, Virginia. Okay.
and my other one is her daughter is somewhere else with her wife.
Okay.
Interesting group of people, let me tell you. And it's hard because they don't accept Andrea and Nicole, and that's not right either. I met Nicole for the first time at a family thing that they made me come to. And it was interesting. And the two kids are a trip and a half. So you know what? So what? But a lot of people judge you by what you are instead of by who you are.
Well, I have a overarching theme that
Yeah,
I believe that haters got to hate. It's what they do.
yeah.
Um, and so people are perpetually angry. I don't
Well, tell
understand it.
tell
Go
us
ahead.
more about Kelly because I love her. She's
Kelly is
cool.
a pissed off teenager. Um,
She's so cool.
she's uh,
Yeah,
she's she's 17 years old with everything that's being 17 brings. She's angry at her mom because her mom was her mom and embarrassed her. The whole business of being so politically public
yeah,
and bringing down the presidential administration. Again, this is off off screen, as it were, before the book happens. Um, but you don't need to read the other books. It's a standalone book. And she's pissed off about being moved to West Virginia, away from her friends and such that are in Northern Virginia,
yeah,
and being the new student in a school where everybody's been going to school together since first grade. You're the not only are the new kid, you're the new kid of the famous lady who brought down the president of the United States. So her life is difficult to begin with. She got the concerns about her body. Is she too fat? Is she too And she's just constantly, and she's not, as Wyatt continues to tell her. She's a door slammer and just perpetually pissed off about something. However, I think she's very endearing.
I
Um,
love her. I think
I,
she's great.
Thank you. I feel for her. It's what a
Yeah,
terrible position she's been put into.
I know that because I was the overweight kid in my class, and the teachers weren't very nice in sixth grade. But when I went to junior high school, I'm 96 pounds. I was like this. There's a benefit to being like this. You get on the girls' basketball team, you play guard, and nobody could get past you.
Okay.
Not only that, I was able to shoot as 5 feet tall 3 pointers, and the gym teacher wanted me there, and the high school gym teacher wanted me there too, because when you weigh 200 pounds and you're a wide end, nobody gets past you, and all I had to do was go like that, and it was great. So you see, being heavy was whatever. They used to call me names, and I just didn't care.
There's never been a gym teacher in the history of gym teachers that's wanted me within 30 yards of their
Yeah.
of the gym floor. So, um, but Kelly ends up being the victim of cyberbullying, where somebody, we think we know who, leaks naked pictures of her.
Uh huh.
She wasn't sexting per se, but they got into her phone where she was just kind of
Yeah.
taking pictures of herself, and they texted that out to everybody, and that makes her life just miserable, and that becomes a big issue in the story too. I mean, who would do such a thing? And is it tied to everything else? Is this really an effort to intimidate Irene via her children? Is it just kids being mean, or is it part of a larger issue within the community? That's what's addressed here. I'm making this sound as we talk. It's sounding like a more of a melodrama than the thriller that it actually is. I mean, it really is a fast-paced thriller. But I write thrillers that have complicated characters, or at least I try to, and that's what we've painted here. So everybody is in distress in this, including the medical examiner who receives this body from
That's hard. Yeah.
Irene's yard. Now, at the time, I should say, when the body was buried, was dumped. This is the middle of nowhere. Still the middle of nowhere, but it's just more developed than it was in the whenever that was, the 30s, I guess, when it was, or no, 60s, when it was dumped. And so it's a quirk of West Virginia, whereas where I came from before, each county had its own medical examiner. Here we've got one. and it's in Charleston, it's state capital. So autopsies are done in the state capital. So it falls to Mary Ann Swain, who's
Mm.
the medical examiner, and she ends up seeing some serious anomalies between what she sees and what the final reports are,
Yeah.
and the concerns are big enough that she involves Irene on her side of things too, knowing that it came from Irene's property. So all these different plot lines ultimately come together in I think I think a pretty explosive ending, actually.
Well, we're not going to tell them anything, are we?
No,
No,
no, we're not.
before I forget, because sometimes I have to forget. No, Wednesday, R.G. Belsky and Bonnie Tramer will be here with Swipe. What's the peril of using a dating app? You don't want to know. On 623, Keller O'Hare will be on Canem. On 8-4, I get to do what I do best. My reading professor from Lehman College and I, Dr. Cavuto, are going to do the next 6 strategies on how to teach children phonics comprehension fluency our way. And I've been doing this forever, but the last time I did the first gym, I said, now you get to see a student after whatever years. So I've got 5 in August, 2 in September, and 2 in October so far. And I've got the 2 more this month that I'm taking off July.
Do we teach phonics anymore?
What?
Do we
Yeah,
teach?
depends on how. They have a new program called the Science of Reading, which I have memorized. I would never use because the phonics is like, in other words, they have B-E-G. They go, no, forget that. There's a way to teach it, and my professor and I will go back over. We did one on last in May 5th, and my stream is on YouTube. After this stream, what happens is Rest Stream will tell me what they think. They will tell me about the sound. They will tell me how many minutes, and they will let me know if I did a good job. So far, so good. What can I say? Now, this is the hard part. Who are Marcy and Billy, and what's their situation? What they don't want to do something, but I don't want to say what it was.
Marcy and Billy are the the assistants who help Marianne as
Yeah,
the
I
medical
know.
examiner, and they are witness to the anomalies between what they found during their examination of the
Yeah,
body from Irene's property and the official report of the body from Irene's property. And they understand that the official report comes from the gubernatorial level. You know, it's way above their pay grades. I mean, super way above Billy's pay grade. And the question is, do they just let it go? I mean, does it matter? This guy's been dead for decades. Does it matter
mm,
what the are, or do they take a step forward and try to correct the record? You know, what's the right thing to do? And there's some debate among them, and frankly, the cost of the decision is quite high.
now Irene creates a master plan, but if you notice, I did not mention the names of the 2 people 35 years ago. I was
Okay.
coming back to yeah, the ones in the first part, the first 35 years, those 2 people.
Yes. What about them?
I didn't mention them.
I
I don't know.
appreciate that.
That's why I didn't mention them because there's like 3 related to each other, and then there's somebody higher up that became higher up that's related. And you're gonna have to read the book if you want to know what I'm talking about. Too bad. So how does she create a master plan?
I'm not sure what master plan we're thinking of, but what Irene realizes
Yeah,
that 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 where multiple things exist in the same place
yeah,
at the same time, they have to be related. You know, there's no such thing as a coincidence. Uh, so she's beginning to see that not only is there a link between the Rutledge family and all things that are bad, and there feels like there's a link between the Rutledge
Yeah,
family and the bad things that are happening to this young man, Colin Frank, who's in jail for something he didn't do.
yeah,
Well, she thinks he didn't do, and um, and for this body that is is causing a lot of havoc 3 decades after the fact. So she realizes that she's kind of got to pull this together, only because she's driven to do it. The smart thing, the smart play, if you want to get along well and fit into your new neighborhood, you sit quietly and you just let stuff happen. It's this case against Colin Frank is a slam dunk. Let it go. Let it be slam dunked. He's got his own attorneys. They don't need her, as they make very clear. Um, this business of the body, the report is the report. Let it stand. Irene is not like that. She can't. This has been Irene's character since 1998 when the book first came out. She can't stand injustice, and
that's
so
right.
she's driven to make sure the right thing happens. Even, and here's the other part of it. She's brought her family through so much over so many years. At, at what point does she just let stuff happen to protect them and let them have normal lives? When do you when justice risks your own family, have you taken a step too far? So these are the elements that are explored through all of this.
But wait till you read that last two chapters, and that's all I'm going to say about that. I was like, whoa, this is so cool.
Well, I
Was
thank
it?
you.
Well, I'm not going to say who was involved. I said, but wow, that is really cool. Seriously. Now, is she going to keep handling investigations? And what's next for her?
Well, the book ends on kind of a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
This, I guess, the answer is in the fact that this is the first of a series. So
yeah, I would hope so.
there will be Irene will be in future books. There's a big question that is asked literally in the last two sentences of the book, and I have not yet answered that in my own head. I haven't written the next book yet. In fact, that's about to start that this week. Um, but certainly she's going to continue uh, to be in Jenkins County, West Virginia, doing thrillery things. Life is not going to be comfortable for her and her family. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job.
You're doing your job. When is it coming out so I get it? Got to
Oh,
make
it'll
sure.
be probably 18 months from now.
I'll see.
I'm writing 2 series now. So I got the
You're
Jonathan
doing the
Graves
Gray
series.
series. When is he coming back?
He'll be out. I just submitted that manuscript, so he'll be out in early 2026. So there'll be a Gilstrap book every 9 months. So it'll be a Grave book and then an Irene book. So every 9 months, one or the other. As a practical matter, that means 18 months for a Grave book and 18 months for an Irene book.
I think the last one I read was Blue Fire. That one.
Oh, Blue Fire. That was Victoria Emerson. That was the
Yeah, I didn't
apocalyptic
read.
book.
I didn't read after that.
Oh
That's
my
what when I
goodness.
saw. That's what I saw. Yeah, you have to send me whatever you did. I didn't read.
All right.
I just got one of them, which is about two Jewish girls hiding the fact that they're Jewish, and what they go through. And the other one is about a tapestry, and that's all I'll say about that.
I didn't write
It's
either of those.
No, you don't want to. Well, one of them is good. One of them is interesting because one girl is very religious, the other one is pretending to be Catholic, and it creates a problem. The other one is it's a true story about a famous tapestry that was stolen from the Louvre. So I'm just getting into that. And I will do both of them because I said I would. It's very rare that I don't do the review, except if it's got too many F words.
Okay.
Or too much spelling. Yeah, I did. There was one author that I had to review for him, but I refused to post a review because the review was off the always. He had it was 700 pages, and every page had at least 20 expletives.
Hmm.
The premise of the book was interesting, but it was those conversations between this main character and dating people, and I don't like that. So I didn't post a review.
Well, I don't know if you talked about this or not, but I went
Yeah,
back my early books, um,
Mm.
they're not laced with profanity, but certainly in my
Yeah.
in my real world, the f bomb comes out fairly frequently. Um,
I try not to do that.
but I've learned that readers really, not all readers, but many
Yeah.
readers are really offended by that word, and it never occurred to me. And when the rights came back to me for Nathan's Run and At All Costs, I went back and took out all of the f bombs, and I haven't written an f bomb since. And I write pretty harsh stuff, you know.
That is hard, yeah.
I do violence, and nobody has ever complained about not having enough profanity. Uh, I used to get a lot of complaints about too much profanity. So for you, anybody who's watching this and you want to get into the writing game, keep that in mind. There's a cost to being profane. Nobody gets offended by the lack of it, and some people get
I
offended.
know.
Book reviewers, for example, might not review your book because there's too much of it, and
I
that's too
usually
high a
read
price
it and
to
then I
pay.
decide, yeah. Well, my new book is out. It came out May 17th on my nephew's birthday. It's called Inverted Reality, and it's pure horror. I am so proud of myself. The stories are no bad language in the book because all my nephews are reading it, all my students are reading it. Somebody's got to read it. It has everybody, every character does something really horrendous and heinous. If they don't repent, they become a face in the mirror, reliving it forever or worse. Some of the stories are true, some of the stories I made up, and some of the stories explain what happened to me because of this.
True horror stories.
The first part is, then the second part is called accusations, and people that were wrongly accused. What if? And there was supposed to be the third choice, not the third voice. And yeah, the first 26 stories are pure horror. I'm so proud of myself.
Well, congratulations. Now, what does horror mean to you? To
It means that when it's a different kind of meaning. In other words, the character, let's say in the first story, is Mrs. Gold, and my favorite doll is Raggedy Ann. And what she did to the dolls was inexcusable because they belonged to someone. So I destroyed her at the end. I turned her into a broken Raggedy Ann doll.
these sound like Rod Serling, sort of the Night Gallery,
Yeah, that's what somebody said.
Twilight
Somebody read
Zone.
it and said you should be on the Twilight Zone because that's how good it is. And that was somebody famous. I go, well, I tried, but whatever. I
You know, those are the
when the
stories that inspired me to want to write stories with the Twilight Zone, the twisty and Night
yeah
Gallery, his next iteration of Twilight Zone. There's something about those twists and the way he told a story that's great. Well, congratulations.
yeah, but I hate my husband watches the Twilight Zone. He makes me watch it. I get like really nervous. But some of the stories are good. But my grandmother's story is silent voices. It's when she was in the concentration camp in Poland. What happened to her? That's a true story. The one that says Dr. E was my principal, and the chancellor's office, true story, called and said, "We don't like your writing and reading scores. We're going to send you the scoring sheets. We want you to change them." Oh yeah, the reading I would not even address. The writing and the math scores were graded by teachers in the school. I called my principal, put me on the phone, see what she said. She says, "What do you think?" I said, "If you want me as a test coordinator and other things and the dean to change the scores, I resign. I wouldn't do it." And the assistant principal said, "What's the big deal?" And she said, "Never in a million years. We wouldn't do it," which is why they forced her out at the end of the year. And I didn't get to be assistant principal because I wouldn't cheat.
The horror in that is asking the
Yeah,
question, what's the big deal? I mean, how is the big deal not so plainly obvious?
it was a really big deal. And what happened was the State Department questioned my scores. So I had to take 250 test booklets, put the class list on the front, put the scores, and put the scores on the top of the paper. And 3 weeks later, I got an apology note from the state saying they wouldn't change even one score. They apologized for questioning me. I still have the note. That just proves I wouldn't cheat. So when I went up for assistant principal, the principal of my school, I knew I wasn't going to get it because they said we look bad if they. It was just the writing scores. It wasn't anything that anybody cared about. I guess
Well,
my
they clearly
ethics.
did, right? I mean, if they if they care
You
about enough
can't write.
to make you turn you into a cheater, then that's caring, and that matters.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And the fifth grade teachers were excellent. There was not one bad one. It's just that three classes did okay, and two got only ones and twos. They want me to change the twos to threes and the threes to fours. I wouldn't do it at all. So you know what? I retired. My mom had Alzheimer's, so I retired early. What can I say? So, where can everybody learn about you and your work? And I can't wait to get the next one.
The best place to go is johngilstrap.com. And as far as getting the books are concerned, everywhere books are sold, go try your local independent bookstore. That's support those folks. They need the help. If for whatever reason they have decided not to stock my book, ask them to, or just go online. You know, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any of those will carry it. But johngilstrap.com is a good place to learn about me.
That's the hardest thing is to get your book in a bookstore.
Well, because there are so few bookstores anymore, right?
Yeah, I
The
know.
shelf space is
This book
becoming
was
more and more
edited
valuable.
by two people, and that's all I'll say. It cost me a lot of money to get inverted reality. But thank you so much.
Been my pleasure.
Stay in touch. Let me know when I'm getting the next one because I put you in my stream. I'm going to end it. Give me 1 second.